beautiful Saturday morning. Much obliged to have you join me on the program Politics Today on independent television and radio. And that's because it's a simulcast on our radio and television platforms. You can also follow the program live on our website, www.itvradioNigeria.com/live stream. We're also streaming live on our Facebook page, facebook.com/ITVRadioNG. Tweet at us at ITVRadioNG. Okay, today on the program, we'll take you back to the outcome of the OSUN governorship rerun. We hear now that in that state, security agents are literally taking over just to ensure there is law and order, there is peace and there is security, that people do not take the laws into their hands. We'll keep tabs on that in the course of the program. Come Monday, the 1st of October, Nigeria will be 58. And again, we'll ask, that's the question we've asked over the years, where are we right now at 58? Yesterday, it was a great time as we have panelists, we have discussants, we have guest lecturers, we had a keynote speaker, as we had the ITV Radio pre-independence anniversary lecture, the second in the series. It was certainly a great time. Look forward to the outcome of that one on our news packages on radio and television. And then on Monday, October 1st, we'll be bringing you the full broadcast of that event. And of course, on our independent anniversary celebration, we have the big one coming up on Monday again, which is Independence of Where We're courtesy ITV Radio, taking place right there at Glass House, Airport Road, Benin City. My name is Sonny Duke Okosun. Welcome on board. Now, about 29 states will be conducting their governorship primaries tomorrow to determine who takes over for whoever is there. For the National Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress, they've already approved both direct and indirect primaries. While some states will adopt direct, others will adopt the indirect primaries. And then, of course, still some of the buzzing stories in the political scene. Port Harcourt has now been adopted unanimously as the venue for the PDP convention. There's been a back and forth movement on that one. Somehow, Governor Nyesom Wike has, his will has prevailed as to where the venue of the PDP convention will be. So once again, welcome on board the show. Our panelists for now, I have Barristers Abraham Oviawi and Sonny Daudu. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program Politics Today.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's just reflect a little bit on the OSUN rerun. Of course, the election was deadlocked when it was first held, with the PDP leading the APC, and then the returning officer came out to say, well, with the way the results turned out, there is no way an outright winner can be declared except that a rerun is held. And the reason he gave was that the voted votes was far more than the margin between the two leading parties, that is the PDP and the APC. The rerun held on Thursday this week, with the APC emerging victorious in that one amidst reactions and counter-reactions, allegations and counter-allegations in that particular one. So, gentlemen, let's get your thoughts on the outcome, final outcomes of the Ekiti State Governorship election rerun. Let me begin with you, Barrister Daudu.
Thank you very much. I'm going to look at it as a government student and what is obtainable globally. Electoral system. I'll take it from the word electoral system, which communities to voting. We have two major types of electoral system. The first past the post system, which is called the majority system, and proportional representation. But however, globally, countries that practices the presidential system of government more often than not adopts the first past the post system, which is recognized by our constitution and the Electoral Act. Whereas some countries that practices the parliamentary system, more often than not, may adopt the proportional representation. But situating Nigeria's context now vis-a-vis the Electoral Act and the Constitution, it is clear to say that we are practicing the first past the post system as recognized by the Constitution.
Okay.
But that has now been modified. The first past the post system, which Nigeria is actually practicing, has now been modified by the electoral manual or guideline issued by INEC, relying on the provisions of the Electoral Act that enable them to make regulations in regards to the conduct of election administratively, which I have argued that that electoral guideline itself is offensive to the Constitution, is offensive to the Electoral Act, is offensive to international best practices. But assuming without considering that that is the practice now being peculiar to Nigeria, assuming the system now being modified, because the Electoral Act has modified the system, it has removed it from the angle of first past the post system. It does not situate it in the proportional representative system. I will tell you further what is proportional representative system. So it has modified it. Let's now agree that that modification is a system now peculiar to Nigeria and Nigeria alone. Our argument remains that it must be applied fairly.
Okay.
Now let us look at the elections of 22nd September 2018 that was declared inconclusive by INEC in OSUN. The reason given by OSUN for the INEC for declaring it inconclusive is that the number of votes which we, the leading candidate, was leading the opposition or leading the other one, were less than the number of
voided votes.
Not voided votes.
Cancelled votes.
Cancelled votes is three areas.
Okay.
Is less than the number of cancelled votes, voided votes, where votes were not heard, or where people were disenfranchised.
Okay. That's almost about 4 areas.
Yes,
now.
and the electoral guideline use the word disenfranchised. So it means that if you cancel results from area, the people are disenfranchised. If you don't allow them to vote, they are disenfranchised. Or if there was overvoting and that result is later cancelled, it's also disenfranchised. So it falls within the ambit of the word disenfranchised. And disenfranchised is tied to the number of registered voters. So it's not also it's not tied to the number of the people who voted and the result was cancelled. It's not tied to it by the electoral guideline. It's tied to the number of registered voters in the area. If the number of registered voters in the area is about 3,000, and you cancel 2,000, they will not base it on the 2,000 you cancelled. It will be based on the entire number of registered voters in the area to declare the result inconclusive. Okay. This argument was canvassed in Faleke and INEC and others, where the Supreme Court held that it is the number of registered voters. Because in Faleke was contending that the number with which he was leading the order of the opposition was already more than the number of people who voted and who collected PVCs from the area, and that there was no way that they would do election that the APC will not still win because they have already won with a wide margin. But the court said no, you don't tie it to the number of aggregated voters or collected PVC, but entire gamut of the registered voters in the area.
So in the face of the law, the returning officer was in order by the action he took, declaring that election inconclusive.
No, I have told you I'm not in agreement with the electoral guideline because it's offensive to the Constitution and the Electoral Act. Okay. I'm only adopting it because it becomes a peculiar circumstances now in Nigeria. Okay. So I'm saying, assuming that is the position we are practicing, you must apply it fairly. Okay. And go somewhere. Now the INEC said that the court said, or INEC argued, that it must be based on the number of registered voters in the areas where elections were cancelled, were not held, or people were disenfranchised. Applying that same principles, the OSUN state elections were regarded as inconclusive because the number of registered voters outweigh the number of cancelled votes or the number of which the candidate was leading. We said, okay, it's okay, let's go to the field and do the rerun. My quarrel with the rerun is that even the rerun have not also met the requirement of the guideline.
Why do you say that?
Good. Now, if you look at the results of the rerun, PDP scored 352. APC scored 1,000
162. Now, the entire result that they scored was about 1,485. As against the number of registered voters in the area, which was 2,637. So the difference between the APC and PDP as it stands now is about 482 votes, which was 54 short of the number of registered area where people were disenfranchised.
Okay,
and then you declare results.
Okay, let me.
So to me, my argument is that even as it stands, declaring a person a winner
from that rerun,
is offensive to the law. It's offensive to even the guideline that INEC is relying on.
Okay.
It's also offensive to judicial decisions. Ordinarily, they were conducted another rerun because there were incidents that
will be rerun.
That is why we are.
Is that what you
yes, I agree with you. That's why we are saying that we must jettison that electoral guidelines because it's creating problem now. The system knows to international best practices. Which I'm saying, if anybody have any country that operates what we are putting now, you bring it. I will contend it with you.
Okay, let me just.
That you can only declare elections as soon as the person passed the first past the post. Let me just tell you before you round up. My father won elections into the Native Council with 1 vote. He defeated his opponent with 1 vote.
Just 1 vote.
1 vote. They were tied initially, but at the point of time, somebody now came in and it was there you line up. Enter my father's line, and he won with 1 vote.
Okay, but Mr. Abraham of Yahweh, what are your thoughts on the OSUN rerun? And then, of course, the first election that was declared inconclusive, and then the rerun. But most importantly, the reactions that trailed the rerun. I mean, there are several videos online, several statements and comments, reactions that trailed the outcome of the rerun itself.
I will wrestle with being academic with respect to my comments in this aspect. 2 things strike me very strongly. One is that upon the election in itself, the 22nd September election, one had thought that there was already a progression from what was alleged in the Ekiti election. Analysts have already gone to town to say that the OSUN election is a model which the country should now improve on with a view to getting our democratic tenets, electoral system properly situated. Elections were cancelled in some areas, even though it has been contended very strongly that some of the votes of one political party upon announcement was abridged. A particular party has scored a certain number of votes from the results of the local government, and upon announcement, at one point it was reduced, at another point that of the other party was increased. And with that, the overall intention was actually not achieved, because on the other end, the man who was at this time opposition to the state actually still won with a 300 and something vote. The rerun was called, and they had said elections were cancelled because of violence, stuffing of ballot boxes. And let me say very strongly that the incidences that occurred in the rerun elections are more critical than the reason for which it was even cancelled in the first place. First, people were hugely disenfranchised. In fact, it was a coup d'etat tailored by the government of the day against the people of OSUN. And to my mind, I think that if this is what the current administration, the current federal government meant by the change which they are advancing or saying they want to enthrone, it means generally that Nigerians made the biggest of mistake ever allowing them to come into power. Just to say very strongly, like my brother had canvassed, my argument to the extent, because he has said that you still have over 1,000 plus differentials from those who were not captured in the votes from the differences, that should be a rerun. I feel ordinarily that the issue of whether the votes of those that didn't vote supersede those, the difference or victory, will arise where there are situations where any area was cancelled, where elections happens across board. Say, for example, you have 10 million persons registered voters in a particular area. Only 1 million comes out to vote, and the other man wins with a margin of even 2. As long as there is no cancelled vote in a particular area, which the number of those registered in that area outweigh the differences. The issue of those who didn't come to vote, the 9 million of those who didn't come to vote, may not come to play at that instance. The issue of whether or not the differences are relevant will only come to play where there is an area that were cancelled. We have seen the various press conferences that have been held by the international envoy who came to monitor, by the various civil society organizations who had gone there, and we saw videos where even someone was even killed, and the argument was that the police and the military were used to rig the rerun elections. And to my mind,
those were allegations made.
Yes,
allegations made.
When we talk about allegations, we look at specifics. If clearly on videos you see people who are bled, you see people who are brutally injured, you see people who have been killed, you see people who are holding their PVC and are crying. Those who forget, these cries didn't start at the end of the election. It started as early as 9 a.m. in the morning, where they cordoned the large areas. Some persons were not allowed to go. You saw on televisions where those who were allowed to go to vote were those who tied white handkerchiefs on their hands. And you tell me that our country, that you hear people of government are saying that the royal election is victory for democracy. What I am saying is very simple. That those who think they can cover the sun with their palm, they will soon find the heat unbearable. Let's not forget what gave birth to the Arab Spring. Let's not forget crises globally. What have instigated crisis? What is happening in Nigeria is a gang up of a few to emasculate the entire system. We had talked by 2015, when we had left the previous era, the indices, the actions and inactions of the PDP that occasioned the exodus movement and support in favor of this current government are less than what we are finding today in our system. To my mind, the OSUN rerun, as it were, is a bad taste in the mouth of discerning minds. It is a bad taste in the mouth of individuals with good conscience, and I feel the judiciary, because particularly where in the main election there were incidences where results, because quite frankly, a differential of 4,000, a man who scored 10,000, and at the local government level they have issued results, and so suddenly when it was to be announced, you do not make it 9,000. It was posted, the man who was going to tear the result was arrested. He made a video of himself and made a professional statement. On his hand, you saw the results that were done, the figures were visible. We saw areas where over 2,000 votes were removed. We need a judiciary at this time to rise up to the occasion to save this country called Nigeria. Okay. And until they rise up and speak truth to power, bearing in mind that those who are aggrieved will present their case in the most undiluted manner before them, and as impartial umpire, I challenge them to speak truth to power to save the democracy.
Yes, let me quickly correct something. Yeah. Although it's aligned with me, but let me quickly correct something. Look at my argument. The electoral guideline says disenfranchised. If you disenfranchise people from voting, it means that you cannot declare results, because these are the number of persons who are supposed to vote. Now, what I'm saying in essence, the danger there is that in law is called giving INEC power that are wide and uncontrollable exercise of discretionary and administrative powers. When INEC now decide where to cancel elections, if I'm leading and INEC doesn't want me to win, he cancels it and say the number of registered voters in the area is more than. Then the man who wants to win, if he's leading and they are bound, he will cancel the result. So we are giving them wide and uncontrollable exercise of discretionary powers. That is the area I'm saying. If it's not checked, it portends danger. Let me quickly tell the world. The by-elections conducted in Kogi State recently for Federal House of Rep. The difference between the two candidates was 40,000. But when the results were cancelled, the difference between them were 19,000. The INEC went ahead and declared the person winner. That's where elections were cancelled.
the number registered voter in the area were 90,000. But the difference between the APC and the candidate or the PDP were 40,000. They went ahead to declare the result as conclusive. These are the arguments we are canvassing. You are giving them discretionary powers that are not controlled, wherein they now pick and choose situation where they determine where to announce the result.
Can this be tested in a court of competence?
It will be tested, sir. It will take time. We are making all these things. Some of us will take a position paper on it, as I'm telling you now.
Okay.
I'm saying that you are giving INEC wide and not discretionary exercise of power, wherein they decide what to do at one point in time.
Okay, let me ask this question, because I know that when the first election took place, and then the results came out before the returning officer declared the election.
By the law, sir, what the returning officer ought to do is to announce the results, because the results have been announced at the world level and pasted.
He should have announced the result.
It's not the way it was presented. You cannot even cancel it at that stage, because electoral officers, which they call presiding officers or returning officers in wards, have declared the results. And not only declaring the results, they were pasted.
Okay.
What the state returning officer ought to do was to announce the results as presented.
But if he had announced the result as presented, wouldn't that have been tantamount to declaring a winner?
Yes, of course, because there was a winner. And my argument is that there was a winner on the 22nd, which INEC failed to announce, in view of the fact that they decided to cancel the results where the opposition parties were leading. If it was the party in power that was leading, they wouldn't have cancelled the result.
You're jumping into conclusion.
No, I'm not jumping into conclusion, sir. What I'm saying is that from the result that came in, I monitored it. I didn't sleep. I monitored the results. From the results that were coming from the area, the oppositions were leading. The opposition that were even leading in those areas was not PDP. It was the SDP who was leading in those areas that were cancelled. But because they were not favorable to the tune and their dictates, they decided to cancel the area. Why were they running to the SDP to say, okay, consolidate with us? Why? Those were the struggles. No,
it's allowed in politics.
I'm telling you, sir.
This is a game of numbers.
See, you can profess what is happening.
Okay, let me let me ask you this question. I listened to some of the commentaries and analysis that the PDP should have demanded for the results to be announced, or they declared winner of that election. Now, having participated in the rerun election, has it foreclosed any possibility?
No. Electoral matters are sui generis. They are sui generis. They are peculiar to themselves. Okay. If he has boycotted the election, he will not have a status to challenge the outcome of the result. Okay. Because you have abandoned the process. The electoral act says that you must participate in all stages of the election before you can challenge the process. Okay. So what he has simply done is to participate. Let me give you an instance. Because I was the returning officer in the election between Asoro Rola and Asoro, who is in the majority leader at the State Assembly, and Ogediak. I was the returning officer. What happened was that prior to the election were cancelled in some areas. Prior to that, the PDP and Ogediak went on air and announced that they have boycott the elections. They are no longer participating in anything that concerns the election. Although the APC was actually leading that result, but because they said the area that were cancelled were too wide and some area where elections were not held at all, and that they should go, the man went and issued a press statement to INEC that they have withdrawn from the elections. Now, when the matter came up for hearing and determination, the position of the court was that having abandoned the process midway, it is now not competent for you to challenge the process you were not part of. So it is not acquiescence in the issue of election that if anybody has advised the PDP to abandon all participation, you can't challenge it because you cannot challenge the process you are not part of. Okay. So their participation is to also, although they have expressed their dissatisfaction with the results, but they must participate for enable them to challenge. What are you going to challenge? A system you have abandoned. Okay. So you cannot.
What's your advice? What's your advice under this circumstance? I mean, given the background of what has transpired from the election proper and then the rerun that followed.
You see, just to say that one of the challenges we have in this country is that when laws are made, those who make the law are particularly concerned about their personal interests at that time. They did not put the interest of all. They did not consider the fact that they may not be in the same position they are today, and that law with which they have made will be counterproductive to them. So when you have an open heart in putting things in perspective, when you make laws which benefits you today, when you refuse to set up an electoral system that will work, when you refuse to allow electronic voting to be entrenched and happen, because you know when it happens, it will bring you down because you are not popular, you want to activate the rigging machine, know very well that same may be counterproductive to you tomorrow. And let me say very strongly that I am not in support of that rerun election. I had faith to my mind that upon the victory of the opposition, the INEC, the returning officer would naturally have announced the winner of that election. The reason being that, like my brother have rightly and intellectually canvassed, that at the various local governments where elections were conducted, the elections have already been announced. The duty of the returning officer is to collate what has been brought forward to him and announce it, not to again results that have not gotten to you. You said, and let me also say very clearly, I am also very guided because of the Supreme Court authority in Falake and INEC and others. Because the Supreme Court has stated very clearly that in such situations, to my mind, I am totally against the electoral guideline. It is radically against the position. The constitution says that once a man who has scored the majority of lawful vote cast, the man has scored the majority of votes, that is how he emerges as governor. Why not creating all that further conditions which the constitution did not even say? Yes, the constitution recognizes the Electoral Act, but the Electoral Act did not say so. Why the guideline? If you say they are all competing for which elections should be conducted, at one point, at the point where they become inconsistent, mutually inconsistent with themselves, I feel that that lower law, which is the guideline directive, should bow. That not allowing the guideline to bow to the position of the constitution is like saying let the subject determine the directive of an Oba, as it were. The constitution in this respect is the Oba, okay, and the subject must bow to the dictates of the Oba, as it were. Let me say very strongly that if INEC is allowed to pick and choose, and I think I agree with him absolutely, INEC cannot pick and choose. Even in the recent past Kogi elections, the differentials were less than the number of registered voters in the council areas, and you had courage to announce the results. What have changed? It's not sufficient for you to now confront us with what happened in Imo, with what happened in Anambra, as a basis for which OSUN was actually a council, as it were. I feel that if you had courage to announce that of Kogi, as it were, it is suggestive of us that it is not the new trend for which you must follow. Don't pick and choose midway and come elsewhere to and I challenge them to challenge the elections in its own diluted form. And I also call on the judiciary at this time. They must rise up to save our country. Okay. Our politicians across board, be it PDP and APC, are shown to be, with different of respect to them, irresponsible. And as such, we need a strong and direct judiciary which must bring them to humility. At what point Nigerians can again begin to generate, because Nigeria will be 58 in few hours time. I'm meaning to say, what can you and I sit down here to boast of? The Nigeria can beat his chest posteriorly and say, we have achieved this as a nation in the last 58 years consistently. Rather than retrogression, we have moved on a progressive pace in this achievement as a country. Is it in terms of security? Is it in terms of social amenities? Is it in terms of our economy that is nosediving? Is it in terms of our electoral system? Is it in terms of the anti-corruption war, which is lopsided and is fighting back? What can we look at? Nigeria at 58,
where our leaders who come to us, who do not practice what they preach, who in 2015 promised to bring change, one man, one vote, electoral system must be strong and viral, and today they have stood the truth on the head. Lies are told by the high and mighty. Even at times with religious sanctity. How do we progress from here? Okay, let me judiciary to salvage us from this.
Let me pass it there by Mr. Abraham Ogawe. I'll take you back. Just so that I'll take you back to the OSUN election. What were the factors that played out that changed the tide of that election against the background that there was an incumbent governor, there's still an incumbent governor, but the results, particularly from the first election conducted, didn't reflect that incumbency? And then maybe people expected the election result to go the way of Ekiti State. So what changed? And what does it portend for 2019 quickly?
Let me quickly say this. You see, what informed the decisions of the OSUN to dump the government in power was that for over 8 months, they were not paid.
34 months.
34 months, they were not paid. But prior to the election, they said Paris fund or some funds were quickly related to the pay the people. It means you could have done these things. So the people were dissatisfied with the OSUN government and decided to vote for a party or for a candidate they believe will meet their yearnings and aspirations. That is what have been attracted now. They wanted to remove their heads from the shackles of impoverishment. But that again has failed because we do not have a strong institution. Let me just quickly make some. If you look at INEC's report, when they said that some area people were disenfranchised, I'm telling you the guideline use the word disenfranchised. If you prevent people from voting, if disenfranchised, that is what the guideline that I rely on says. Okay. So cancelled votes, voided votes are incidental to that word. What is in the guideline is disenfranchised. Disenfranchised means, when I look at the dictionary meaning, is when you prevent people from voting when there was supposed to be election. Elections are going on, but you prevent people from voting. It's not even when elections are not held. It's not what is disenfranchisement. Okay. I read the law, the constitution. Okay. I read the electoral act. I read the Black's Law Dictionary. The word disenfranchised means that elections are going on, but you prevent people from voting. That's what the guideline that I rely on says. So when you now say, how do you prove that people were disenfranchised? Means that you did not allow them to vote and they were ready and willing to vote.
So you're saying that didn't happen in this election?
Yes, so they prevented people from voting. Okay. What they did was that, you see, there was an agreement between people that if you hold something, you raise something in your hand, we know you are voting for the candidate that we want to win. Once you don't have this thing, you are prevented from voting. That's what they did. That is disenfranchisement.
Okay.
So, in the region, they makes that arrangement. That is why you see the poor result that came from there, where you have about 3,000 people that were supposed to vote, only about 1,000 plus that voted. And the 1,000 votes that voted, 1,162 went to one person. So you should know what was going on. Okay. So what I'm saying that people were disenfranchised. Based on that disenfranchisement, you would have cancelled those areas too. Okay. So that you can have a fresh result. So since you say it's result, you continue to be conducting, which I told you is offensive to the electoral act, sir. The electoral act I rely on is offensive to it. If you look at section 69 of the electoral act, it subjects the declaration of any candidate to section 79 of the constitution. It does not subject it to the electoral guideline. What I'm saying is that the enabling law, which is the electoral act, says that anything you are going to do in regards to governor and president is subject to section 79 of the constitution, not subject to the guideline that you are going to make subsequently.
So which means it's inferior to the constitution?
It's inferior to the constitution. So the INEC, the section 69 itself says that you should declare it facing once it has won by majority of votes. And when you go to section 79 of the constitution, it says so. So the electoral guideline.
This case is an opportunity for lawyers
to make some good money.
To make some good money.
The electoral guideline which they are relying on is not a law, sir. Okay. That is my fear. Okay. That is my worry. It's not a law. It's just a regulation. Administratively, sir, I use the word, it's administrative. Because that guideline was not approved by the National Assembly. It was a guideline made pursuant to the Electoral Act. Okay. So it is a guideline. It's not a law. It's not an act of the National Assembly. It is just a regulation to guide your conduct.
So we leave it for the courts.
And now that we are seeing that you are now exercising it arbitrarily,
yes.
Our word is, I'm not interested in who governs Osun State. I'm interested in the process that brings the person into power.
And how the person affects the lives of the people of
yeah, so
yeah.
If you will go by the antecedent, I'm sorry to delve into the other politics. If you will look at the antecedent of the candidates that contested in the election, the APC candidate is not resident in Osun State. He's not a registered voter in Osun State. He resides in Lagos. Whereas Omishore and Adeleke are grassroots people. You remember that Adeleke is less than 5 months in Senate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so when his brother died, the APC refused to give him ticket. He went to PDP, he beat the candidate of the APC, so that you see his popularity.
Okay, so let's leave that
careful.
Let's leave that for the courts to decide, as if the PDP decides to pursue that case judicially to seek redress. It's still politics today on independent television and radio. With me in the studio, Barrister Abraham Oviawi and Barrister Sonny Daudu. We'll take a short break. Remember, Monday is 1st of October. Nigeria will be 58. We'll be talking along those lines in a moment. Don't go away.
People of Nigeria,
arise, celebrate as Nigeria turns 58 come 1st October 2018.
God don't do us well.
God has done me well. God has done me well.
Sake of this, independent television and radio won't rise country people for independence or where.
People of Nigeria,
arise.
So when?
Ẹ̀yin èèyàn mi jẹ́ ká jó.
Màá jó ní tèmi o, màá ṣọ̀kẹ́.
Assalamu alaikum. Ìfíàdọ̀nù zọ̀mọ̀, ọ̀sìn máa gbé o.
We roll.
Yes, so Papa, Mama, brother, sister, pikin, no fair to Shokurubale because we're ready to change your swagger. Oh, walai!
Oh yeah, baby, see how it's a go. Sangalo is a go.
This na Expo. Get ready for match pass competition, Wazobia dance competition, instrumental cultural dance competition, old school attire competition, professional costumes competition, quiz and current affairs, discussion on illegal migration and its consequences, plus many more.
Also available, cartoon characters and games garden for children.
Oh, where?
The boy done the
Date, Monday 1st of October 2018.
Time, 10 a.m. Bakam.
Venue, Independent Television and Radio Corporate Office, Glass House, Airport Road, Forbidden City.
Get fee, 500 naira, small money for one person. Independence or where?
For the Owerizer of the Owerism.
Okay, just on the verge. Okay, we're into the second half of the program. Nigeria at 58. What are your thoughts? What are your perspectives? What are your opinions? How would you describe the journey so far? Certainly we may not have come so strong as expected, meeting all indices of development, but certainly we've come this far. Give God all the glory. But there are more to be done to take us to where we ought to be. Our studio lines will be opened shortly, but let's begin with our panelists here, Barristers Abraham Oviawi and Sonny Daudu. Gentlemen, once again, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Barrister Oviawi led us into that a couple of minutes back. Maybe you could just build on the thoughts that you canvassed about Nigeria at 58.
Let me say that first, despite the pains, despite the challenges, in the last 58 years, even though things have come, we thank God for life. But just to say very clearly, that a child who is 58 years old ought to have a solid foundation, ought to know its right from its left. Like I was trying to say, that if Nigeria is 58, what is that thing that as individuals of this country can posteriorly say that this country have achieved? Is it a strong and very federal system? Is it adequate security, which has shown clearly that Nigeria is currently at war against itself? Is it our economy which is currently nosediving, and how the CBN was threatening a few days ago that Nigeria may return back into recession, as if we were out for recession?
No, we're out from recession.
Yes, that's what the record says. If you say we are out from recession, and that does not trickle down to the life and yearnings and aspiration and daily life of individuals on the street, it is a word back analysis. It is what their book says, not what its residents in the people as it were. How about our educational system? How about our database structure? Can a Nigerian walk up anywhere and you log in his name and you see his full details? How about social empowerment? How about leadership? How about structures in terms of institutions? What have this country achieved? How about leadership? Nigeria has been very unlucky with the quality of leadership this country have had. And the painful part about this are year in, year out. Individual, every 4 years, they come with manifestos. If you call any members of the Edo State House of Assembly now, call their phone line, they will pick. If you call their phone line today now, you send them text messages, they will respond to you and they will pick their lines because elections are close. They want to lure the people into another round of slavery again. But immediately they get into power, they forget about the people that have brought them in. They are not concerned about the yearning and aspiration of the people. They are concerned about empowering themselves. 58 years down the line, what can this country beat its chest to say it has achieved?
At least we're together as a country. At least we're together as a country.
Yes, let me also tell you that Nigeria is together. It's not in itself an achievement, because we have had countries in the past who have been together upon division. Things have gotten better for them. If this country actually become too big for one person to lead, then if we claim to be together and internally we are divided across board, the Abeful animal cannot live in peace with the Igbo man. You hear of farmers, herdsmen classes every day. The Igbo man cannot live in peace with the Yoruba man. The Hausa man cannot walk freely into the zone of the South South without suspicion. You cannot go, the Christian cannot visit the camp of the Muslim without being accused of infidelity or any other thing. We may be one as a country called Nigeria, but we are internally divided. And as such, if internally we are divided as a human being,
can we work to see how we can bridge all this gap?
I am telling you that this gap will be difficult to bridge because our leaders have become very political about it. It has become a basis for which they gain political power. Okay. It has become a basis for which they are ascending the throne. It has become a means for which they make money for themselves.
Okay.
They are thinking of Nigeria as one in a holistic sense, where everything, peace, security, economic stability, social amenities, quality education will become one. Today, a child from the north, from the north, same unity school, has a different cutoff mark for which he can access the school, different from those from the south. If you are not born with silver spoon in your mouth, you cannot work in certain areas. But a man who has made a first class, who is radically qualified, who has done well, cannot achieve it. Nepotism has risen everywhere. Oppression is everywhere. The child of the poor cannot radically compete favorably with the child of the rich. There are segregation everywhere. The weak are bastardized. Let's take this call. What are we achieving?
Let's take this call. 852-290-573. That's our studio number. Your name, where you're calling from, and then go ahead with your contribution. Tell us your name, where you're calling from, and then go ahead with your contribution. Hello, caller. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, Bishop Iso, thank you for joining us on Politics Today. Please go ahead.
It's a pleasure. I greet all of you there, wishing you happy independence.
Thank you.
As well. I compare Nigeria going to 58 years old to China's things fall apart. When it compares a situation to a giant walking with the limbs of a mosquito. You know, it is impossible for a giant to walk with the limbs of a mosquito because the giant will just crumble. And that's the situation Nigeria has found itself in. A country that is supposed to be 58 years old by the next few hours cannot boast of electricity, cannot boast of water, cannot boast of good roads, cannot boast of pipe-borne water, cannot boast of good schools, cannot boast of good hospitals. For goodness sake, why is it that even our own president, in seeking medical care, he has to go abroad? Is it not a shame to Nigeria? Look at what the Ghanaians are now doing now. We are not begging them. But before now, we told them Ghana must go. They are now telling us Nigeria must go. Let us really settle down. Let us talk to ourselves. Let us know that our politicians, they do not mean well for us. There should be a change somewhere. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bishop Iso. Our studio line is still open. 052-290-573. Hello, caller. Good morning.
Yes, my name is Timothy. I'm calling from Benin.
Yes, go ahead, caller.
I must say Nigeria at 58, we have not really achieved anything. Looking at it very closely, you see that many things that is going on in the country, it is everywhere. Just look at the OSUN election that just concluded days back. So look at how...
Lost that call. Just hope you can get back to us quickly so we get your final thoughts on the points you raised. Just before we take the last set of course, let me get your views. Nigeria at 58 by Sosoni Daudu.
Well, let me say this without missing words, that the Nigeria of today is not the country that was handed over to us by our forefathers or by the colonial masters in 1960. Why do I say this? Before 1960 and 1960 and thereabout, the economy was very fair. People all over, students in the hostels and all of that, were catered for with free foods. And when you are able to go to the university and graduate, a job is waiting for you. Cars were given. My principal was given, they were the last group, they were given tortoise car when he graduated. As he was leaving the camp, they gave him a tortoise car and he was processed to become a teacher. That it does not happen anymore. So where are we? So instead of building on what we handed over to, we destroyed it. Some argue that we're actually not matured. That is why we are not able to handle
at the time we gained independence.
So we're not really mature. That is why we're not able to handle and develop and build on the legacies that we met. It's disheartening. Today, we cannot, what can you boast of? People make first class, they don't have a job. People make first class, they don't have a job. We don't have roads.
Hello, caller, good morning. Please turn down the audio level on your TV or radio. Yes, good morning. Tell us your name.
My name is Roberto. I'm calling from Benin.
Roberto, please go ahead.
Yes, as far as I'm concerned, Nigeria at 58, we've not really moved well because the political actors, they've decided to act wrongly by not putting the right things in place. A country whereby we don't have basic amenities cannot be said or agreed to have moved forward. So I will appeal to Nigerians that come 2019, they to vote for candidates and not for political parties. Because voting for political parties and not looking at the quality of the candidate is killing the polity and thereby giving the political party the opportunity to suppress us, to oppress us,
and to take us backward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I took something from the last caller. Come 2019, vote for candidates, not political parties. Anyway, let's get final thoughts from more callers. Good morning. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Philip. I'm calling from.
Okay. It's a bit noisy at the background. We can barely hear you. Can you speak up a little bit?
All right, all right. I've worked with my radio.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, okay, go ahead.
Yes. My take on this issue you people are discussing, let me first of all commend you people. You people are doing a very nice job here.
Thank you.
For Nigeria 2058 in a few hours' time, for me, I don't think there's nothing to be proud of. After 58 years of being on our own independence, we have no good road, there's no water, no light. I'm 39 years old. For these 29 years of my life, I have not lived, I've not seen a day in this country that complete 1 month that we have light in any area. Nowhere in this country that can celebrate 1 month of electricity, which is very bad. Our politicians today, they are just there for their own selfish interest, not for the interest of the people. And look at what happened in OSUN State recently. Quite out loud, even a blind person can see that election was win.
Okay, we'll leave that for the courts to decide on if the aggrieved decide to take the matter to the court. Well, that's the end of the road on the program Politics Today on independent television and radio. Vice President Dao, the main thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Vice President, thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you very much.
We'll be together again next week, Saturday, exactly 10:30 on ITV Radio. Big thanks to you for staying with us. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.